hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You hear some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to
Good evening, Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Well, good evening. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Sabrina Speaks family, near and far. How are you on this fabulous Thursday? It's good to be back with you. Welcome one and all to another episode of Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. I am Sabrina, for those of you just joining me for the first time. We are broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands every Monday to Friday from 5 until 7 p.m., where we are all into civic education, definitely keeping everybody in the know with what's happening locally, and of course, discussing things that really matter, because we are voices of the islands and conversations for the world. But like I said, it's good to be back with you this evening for another informative, engaging, and thought-provoking episode. And thank you for all of you who actually religiously join me here every episode. We appreciate you. And tonight on Sabrina Speaks, under the banner of Parliament in Focus, yes, health, safety, and the future of Cayman's social construct. My intentions is to pretty much break down the debates that will shape how we live, how we protect each other, and even how we govern ourselves. So call 345-936-8255 to be a part of the conversation this evening. And the content you're about to hear, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, and or participants, is intended solely for general, informational, and entertainment purposes. It's not a substitute for professional legal, medical, or financial advice. So I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Bridge Media Limited and all its affiliates disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. Welcome one and all. It's good to have you here with me this evening. I hope that you're having a good day. Winding down from work and on your way home, yeah, it's good. We are blessed. We are thankful for being living here in the beautiful Cayman Islands, contrary to some other places. But you know how we do it here as irregulars. Let's take a look at what's dominating our news when it comes to the weather. Yes, compliments of the Cayman Islands National Weather Service. Now, moderate winds and seas along with some isolated showers are expected across the Cayman area over the next 24 hours as low moisture and upper level trough lingers over the Northwest Caribbean. Isolated thunder remains possible, and the chance of isolated showers and thunder remains possible through the weekend as the moisture continues to dominate across the area, coupled with marginal upper level support. Now, the forecast for tonight calls for cloudy skies with a 40% chance of showers and possible thunder. Temperatures will fall to the mid-70s. Winds will be east to northeast, 10 to 15 knots with higher gusts, and seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. The forecast for tomorrow calls for partly cloudy skies with a 40% chance of overnight shower and possible thunder. Temperatures will rise to the mid-80s. Winds will be east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots with higher gusts, and seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. There will be a high tide this evening at 11:08, a low tide at 5 a.m., and another high at 10:45 tomorrow morning. Sun will set this evening at 6:31 and sunrise tomorrow at 6:41. And the outlook calls for the chance of isolated showers and possible thunder through the weekend as moisture continues to be activated across the area, coupled with, again, marginal upper level support. So thank you to our friends over there at the Cayman Islands National Weather Service, keeping us all in the know what's happening with their weather, and also keeping you informed as you may have some outside activities that are going on as well. But it's good to be back here with you as you take your time and you come in. And it's always good to bring you another episode as we keep informed. It's amazing the amount of messages that I get even post-show and into the next day asking for clarity. And I know a lot of you, I stayed up late just watching the Parliament, but we'll go into that because it is still ongoing right now. And I have the latest updates in case you miss it for today as well with the private members motion. So let's take a look before we go into the substantive episode today, which you are a part of. And I invite all of you to participate. You're more than welcome to join in. Let's take our attention now and turn it over to news that is dominating our headlines for today, local, regional, and international. Starting with home. One man has been arrested on suspicion of immigration fraud after police uncovered a targeted scam exploiting upcoming changes to Cayman's immigration laws. Now, according to the Royal Cayman Islands Police Service, the suspect was soliciting payments from residents by falsely promising to secure Caymanian status outside of official WORC channels. Another individual has been identified and warned. WORC is reminding the public that only authorized government processes can handle residency and status applications. And in other local developments, the Ministry of Caymanian Employment and Immigration has launched a new program called Hello to Hire, designed to connect Caymanian job seekers directly with employers. The initiative offers structured, one-site career support and aims to boost local hiring while reducing reliance on imported labor. Officials say that the program is part of a broader push to strengthen Cayman's workforce to create more opportunities for Caymanian. Now, meanwhile, today, yes, Parliament continues with its fourth meeting of 2025 to 2026 session today, going late into last night and getting the work of the House done. Now, Thursday is Opposition Day and Private Members Motion number 4, National Public Safety for mask wearing, Private Members Motion number 5, Motion for Mandatorily Red Line Amendment of Bills, and Private Members Motion number 6 of 2025, Motion to duty-free importation of recycling equipment, all brought to the floor of Parliament by MP Kenneth Bryan, Georgetown Central, were unanimously passed by Parliament as 3, what would call back-to-back home run in this session. Now, this sets the stage for several key debates shaping Cayman's governance and public policy directions. As I said, we will keep you up to date with other private members' motion right now that is being discussed later on in the show, because the one that is being debated right now is how limiting social media for kids under the age of 16, but we'll go more into that. Stick and stay with me here on Sabrina Speaks for more on that. Turning our attention now to regional news. Across the region, Caribbean governments are mobilizing humanitarian support for Cuba following its latest request for assistance. Now, several nations are coordinating relief shipments to Cuba, continues to face economic and supply chain challenges. Regional leaders say that the efforts reflecting long-standing commitments to mutual aid and Caribbean solidarity. And in Jamaica, Jamaica has launched its National Hurricane Strap campaign ahead of the 2026 hurricane season. The initiative encourages homeowners to reinforce roofs and structures to reduce storm damage. Officials say the campaign is critical as climate-driven storms become more intense and frequent across the Caribbean. And in Guyana, the Guyanese government has announced expanded pension benefits for senior citizens as part of a broader social welfare upgrade. The new measures aim to improve financial security for older residents and address rising living costs across the country. Now let's take a look at international markets. Global markets were shaken today as the Dow Jones plunged 1,000 points, triggered by a sharp surge in oil and fuel prices. Analysts warn that rising energy costs could reignite inflation and pressure central banks to delay or reverse expedited rate cuts. It's the largest single-day drop in months and has investors on the edge. And in U.S. politics, President Donald Trump has formally withdrawn the United States from the Global Minimum Corporate Tax Agreement, calling it harmful to American businesses. The move is expected to reshape international tax negotiations and could have ripple effects for financial jurisdictions worldwide. And finally, turning our attention to the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom government says more than 100,000 British nationals living in the Middle East have registered for consular assistance amid rising regional tensions. Officials say that the surge reflects growing concerns about instability and the need for rapid response support. That concludes our news update for local, regional, and international for today. It's good to have you here with us. Good evening, one and all. I hear that one of my class of 1990 schoolmates is celebrating a birthday today. Whoop, whoop. Kudos to you, Natasha Bunting. Happy birthday to you as well on your Earth Strong. Wishing you many, many, many more birthdays to come. And I'm hoping, knowing you're having a blast. You're probably celebrating for the entire month. But yes, class of 90, that is a crew. We're aging like fine wine. And from all of us here on Sabrina Speaks family, we send birthday wishes to all of you. All are celebrating birthdays today and also anniversaries as well, living life to the fullest. From all of us here on the Sabrina Speaks family, happy birthday, one and all. Yes, yes, yes. It's good to be here. I see my girl. Say Patula, I'm still looking good, girl. Shaka Zulu's in the house. Good evening to you, my dear. It's good to have you here with us. Damian Henry is in. Life is as good as your mindset. Oh, that is so profound. Thank you for sharing that. You're quite right. Yep. Marshall. Class of 1990. That's my boy. Andrew is here as well. Blessed Thursday to you as well. Lots of love from us. Hello from London. How are you over there? How's the weather? Keep your weather. Always good to have my UK family in and my Australian crew. I know they've been MIA, kinda. On the posting, but I know that they've been watching as well, even if they're doing it after the fact. So again, to the worldwide family, it's always good to have you, and it's good to know. Tell us where you're actually streaming from, and we love your feedback. We love you because we're all connected, no matter what. Even though we're here in the beautiful Caribbean, we're all connected some way, somehow. Yeah. But welcome one and all. Carol's in the house. Good girl. You see me? I'm still looking fine. I'm trying. You know, yesterday we got some breaking news. I shared with you all on the platform an email that I got, and I was pretty much reading it as I opened it to you, but I felt I didn't do it any justice, and I felt the need to just bring you an update as a Did You Know segment here. And that is pertaining to trade and business, micro and small businesses and the incentives. I just felt I had to give it some attention today before we go in for a recap of what happened and what's happening in Parliament, right? There also been some discussions as well as it pertains to HIV, sexual transmitted diseases, and how the Cayman Islands should be looking at that. But we'll go into that. But I felt I needed to give this email some justice for aspiring entrepreneurs, those persons who are already in business, who may have taken advantage of what government is doing to help us, small business, micro and small businesses, to actually survive in this market. So right now, what has happened here is that we in the Cayman Islands have a special incentive program that can dramatically reduce the cost of getting or renewing your trade and business license, right? And especially if you're a Caymanian micro or small business owner. So if you are falling in those categories, if you're not sure where you fall, I'm encouraging you to pay attention, because I'm going to give you an update on that, okay? A lot of people don't know this, and some do, but they don't understand the responsibilities where you only pay $75, but you don't pay a trade and business fee because you fall within the category as defined as micro or small business, or you're engaging in a business that is not one of the businesses, which I'll get into, that is not eligible for this incentive program, okay? So my aim is to just spend a couple minutes to break this down in plain, simple language so nobody's caught off guard, or maybe you're a part of this incentive program and you realize now that the requirements that are being asked of you, you may not want to participate anymore. How do you exit? I got it all packed in here for you. But if you want to join in the conversation, by all means, you're welcome to. 345-936-8255 is the number to call to be a part of the discussion, whatever social media platforms that you're streaming us live on as well. Please keep it respectful, but feel free to message me there. And also you can send me a WhatsApp question as well, and I will read it out for you, protecting your identity if you don't even want to do it on your social media platform. So what is this incentive? This is a big discount for many on trade and business license and fees. Now, it doesn't matter whether or not you're a limited liability company or you're a sole trader. It doesn't lessen the fees for you to do the registration for your limited liability company. But when you go to the trade and business side of it, the operational arm for you to operate your business, those fees, if you fall within a certain category, all you have to do is pay the filing fee of $75, okay? And this is geared for Caymanian owned, I must say, let me stress this, Caymanian owned micro and small businesses, okay? And at the end of the day, you pay $0 for the license right now. And your discount depends on exactly where your business is located as well. Because in Georgetown, as stated, is 50% off, West Bay also 50%, Bodden Town 75% off, Northside 75% off, East End the same 75%, Kim and Brack 75% off, because the law for the sister islands already gives a 50%, and this adds another 50. So it's totally 100% for the sister islands, meaning Cayman and Brack and Little Cayman. So if you're over and doing a business in the sister islands and you fall within a micro and small business, and you're not doing businesses that fall outside the scope to participate in this incentive program, you get the biggest savings. Yes. And what is the qualification criteria? Again, the discount is given to your business that must be 100% Caymanian owned and controlled. Owned and controlled. And the first legal definition I'm going to give you, as it defines under this law, for micro and small businesses, because this is where a lot of people get mixed up. For the micro business here in the Cayman Islands that is owned and controlled by a Caymanian national, it has to be up to 4 employees, not including the owner. And its income, gross annual income of Cayman currency, CI dollars, 250,000 or less. So in simple terms, if your business is a small, home-based, or just starting out, and you make under $250,000 in a year, you are a micro business as defined by this law, and you can participate to get your trade and business license fee for zero, only paying the filing fee for the submission. Okay. Now, a small business, that's your micro business, a small business here in the Cayman Islands that is Caymanian owned and controlled is a business that has up to 12 employees, including that of the owner, not including the owner, has up to 12 employees, not including the owner. But the income has an annual income of 750,000 or less per year. So if your business is bigger than a micro business, but still not a medium-sized company, and you make under $750,000 a year, you're defined as a small business. And these determines exactly who qualifies for either 100% fee reduction for a micro business or 50 to 75% fee reduction for small business, depending on the district where the business is operating from, and also to access government support programs and their eligibility for certain grants and incentives as well. So if you don't meet the revenue or employee limits, you cannot be classified as a micro or small business under current legislation here. And to be officially recognized, you need to, and this is very important, and I don't think a lot of people realize this because we're not a jurisdiction that pays tax, so you don't have to file your taxes, that sort of stuff. But listen to this bit. To be officially recognized and participate in this program as a micro and small business, you still must show proof of your annual revenue, meaning all the monies that you're making in your micro and small business. Because remember, you're not paying for your trade and business licenses, right? And then you also need to provide proof to the Department of Commerce and Investment of the number of employees that you actually employ. And they're also asking for a declaration that your business is 100% owned, Caymanian owned and controlled. And it is for this reason that the Department of Commerce and Investments is asking for documents like financial statements, payroll lists, and also your business plan. So if you are a Caymanian entrepreneur, knowing that you're a micro and small business is the key to unlocking this major savings and government support. But due diligence is required of you as well. And now you know exactly how it's defined, but also your responsibilities in reporting all of your business income. Because if you fall over those income range, you will not be eligible to participate in getting your trade and business license for free. Now that goes into which businesses are not eligible for it. There are some businesses that could fall into micro and small business, but for the very nature of work that they're not qualified to apply or participate in the incentive programs. And those are auditing firms, bulk fuel suppliers, block making companies, quarry operations, and building material suppliers. So if you fall within one of these categories, the discount doesn't apply, okay? So if you're in anything with auditing firms or supplying fuel, is really not that large when you look at it to really see who can actually be eligible for this incentive. But if you're auditing firm, bulk fuel suppliers, block making companies, quarry operators, or building material suppliers, you're not eligible for this. Now, some may say, well, what if I realize that I'm making over this and can I choose to withdraw? I don't want to be giving all of my finances out, that sort of stuff. Well, look, there's nothing under the law that mandates you to continue in the program. And if you choose to withdraw from this micro small business incentive program, fine. You actually just need to communicate this to the Trade and Business Board in the form of writing. And, if you know that you're making more revenue than what the bandwidth is for the size of your business, or if you want to get a non-Caymanian partner within your business, or your employee headcount is going to exceed the amount and your circumstances change, then you just write to inform the Trade and Business Board, and then you pay the requisite fee that would be applicable for you, because you don't want to be operating, taking advantage of the incentive, making over 75,000, making over $250,000 in a year, and then they find out or somebody reports on you, you could be charged. And I don't think you would want to do that. So it makes more sense if for whatever reason you choose to, you don't want to participate in it. And for the amount of information now that you're going to have to be providing in order to get your trade and business approval fee for zero, all you got to do is notify the Trade and Business Board in writing, withdraw, telling them that it is your desire to withdraw from the incentive program. And then you provide proof that you have paid the fee that is applicable for the nature of business, if it's square footage, whatever it is, meet that requirement, and they will update it. They will update it. So the big thing here is that I want you to take away this part, is the most important thing, that if you are a business owner and you are free to withdraw, that is totally within your remit from the program, but you must still tell the board. That's one of the biggest takeaway. Please still tell the board that of your intention to just keep it transparent. It's good to keep you in the know, but I thought it was fair for me to actually just let you know what it is. And there are forms as well if you want to continue in the program. There are forms on the dci.gov.ky under the trade and business forms to declare. And should you need more information as well, you can call them at 945-0943. So let me see if I can just do this up here for you to keep you in the know, because that's what we're here for. Could be an aspiring person who the fees for your trade and business, it will be a good little startup for you. Government will take care of that. There you go. So for more information on the DCI and the incentive, that is the link. And that is the website that you go on for the forms. And that's the number that you call as well for more information. So there you go. Can't say you didn't hear it here. And I don't want anybody getting in any problems out there, taking advantage of the incentive program, and then you find yourself in a little pickle. It's not worth it. 345-936-8255 is the number to be to call to be part of this conversation this evening. To all of you just joining us, good evening. Welcome. It's good to have everyone here. Yes, in the room. Joining us for another episode of Sabrina Speaks. The virtual room is what I call it. Yeah. Existing business license, it's on renewals or whatever. If you're a part of the incentive, nothing changes. Upon renewal, if you want to participate, Mr. Shillette, the Dean says, what about existing licenses? Nothing changes from that aspect. Nothing at all changes. I'm just letting you in the know. And if you're an existing business, actually, you should have gotten an email. So check your inbox. Everything that I'm said here is just a consolidated way. They have even attached to your email, if you're an existing business, the forms that I've alluded to. But just in case you're someone starting a business, first time, an entrepreneur, want to get into that business, the link is there that I just posted and the number for more information. So yeah, it doesn't impact existing businesses at all. The key is if you are an existing business and you want to now participate in the program, by all means, you just, once you fill out your form, you tick you want to participate in the program, prove that you're a Caymanian owned and controlled business. You either fall within the one or the two categories, you're good to go. If you're already in the program and you want to get out of the program, then, and if you're up for renewal or whatever, and you don't want to provide these documents on renewal to declare your income and all that sort of stuff, all you do is when you do your renewal, choose not to be a part of the incentive program and you pay the fee. Good to go. That's it. So yeah, hope that answers your question, Dean. Thank you always for participating. But tonight's episode is titled Parliament in Focus, Health, Safety, and the Future of Cayman's Social Contract. And this title is really intentional because what's happening right now on the floor of Parliament, I witnessed today and last night as well, debates and where we saw where there's definitely collaboration. We see both sides of the aisle unanimously supporting bills. And like I said, for those of you who didn't know, or you may have missed some of our podcast, Thursday, there's always a day in Parliament that is dedicated for members of the opposition, and Thursday is that day. So you would have seen the order paper for today that was loaded not with government motions and bills being presented, but actually with members of the opposition, private members' motions. And a lot of those were actually being tabled today, placed on the floor of Parliament. So I'm going to take my time to actually go through some of those for you, to just give you a catch up on exactly what that means, try to unpack it as best as I can for you. And let's hope to keep you all informed. But member from Georgetown Central, Kenneth Bryan, he had actually placed 3 motions on the floor, and all 3 motions were unanimously supported. And I'll go through, just in case you forgot what those were, I will definitely go through those for you right here today. And I think it's easier for me to do this. There were a number as well that were withdrawn from the floor that would be in, yeah, here they are. Private members motion. Let me add this to the screen so that you can follow along with me. You will notice private members motion for national public safety for mask wearing, the motion for mandatory red line amendments to bills, motion of duty-free importation for recycling equipment. And they were actually doing, just before I went live, limiting social media for children under the age of 16. And based on the contributions that were being made on the floor of Parliament just before coming live, I think the member for Georgetown West, Perlina McGlaw-Lumsden, is going to get her first possible motion passed unanimously on the floor based on the contributions. I don't see why they would actually not vote for this, but the tune of the contributions that I witnessed and that I heard, I think she's going to be successful. And the reasoning behind it and her research that she put in there, all 2 of these members actually did a lot of research in justifying it. And yeah, but kudos, congratulations to them both. That's member for Georgetown Central and Georgetown West, definitely bringing it home. And I will take my time to go through that with you as well, because like I said, the private members motion number 4 unanimously passed. And this is a major step towards creating new rules around wearing of masks or full face covering in public spaces. And that's why it took on a different conversation when it came to national security. And every resident needs to understand what this means, because it affects daily life. It actually is going to change public safety as we know it, and what we have become accustomed to since COVID. And now we can move around, and how persons actually move around in our communities and even work. So what this private members motion calls for government to do right now, where it's at, because it's been unanimously passed on the floor of Parliament, is that where it is right now is that you're going to need draft legislation that will restrict the wearing of masks, that will restrict full face coverings in public, except for legitimate reasons such as medical needs. And this is going to be a little wonky, because even occupational requirements, cultural or religious practices, and safety gear for specific works. Now, understanding our community has religions that the burqa, that you wear your face, there is room for that out of respect, but this is not to ban mask. It's not a ban on masks, right? It's a public safety measure. And like I said, in case you're just joining us, this particular motion was passed unanimously, meaning every member of Parliament agreed that this is now a national concern, because based on the debates and what they have presented in their presentation, police have reported a growing trend as well, including members in communities where criminals are using masks and full face coverings to hide their identity. And what the police have also said as well is that robberies and break-ins are even harder to solve. CCTV footage becomes almost useless, and communities feel unsafe when people walk around fully covered with for no clear reason. What was very important or interesting is that one of the contributions made to justify why this is imperative that we actually put these into law is that how much of you get a gardening service and you could not identify to save your life? Who really, unless you're using someone that you've had for years, who really they bring into your yard? Some of them to save you, you would not be able to identify them. And it was the same concern that was brought up with persons who come to your house or your place of business to wash your cars as well. So this motion in itself does not create the law where it is right now. It is a motion for the government to consider unanimously on the floor of Parliament. Everyone supported it. But what it does by passing of the motion is that it now instructs the government to draft the law. So that means that the Attorney General's chambers has more works on their hands because they will now have to prepare the legislation, because the bill will go through also public consultation. Parliament will then have to debate and vote on the final law. And you also have to decide what penalties and exemptions will be clearly defined. So even though this has been passed because it is a motion, Cayman is not at the enforcement stage yet, but the process has officially begun. So it's a kudos, it's a step in the right direction. And once the law now is drafted, you can and look for, expect clear rules when mask or even face coverings are allowed, clear penalties for these misuses as well, and clear exemptions in the event of medical, cultural, or occupational reasons. And then honestly, in regards to crime prevention, not discrimination. So really, they're going to have to get a balance in protecting public safety while, of course, respecting individuals' rights. So it's going to be interesting how it evolves. But I see where someone here, and I'm going to try to get to your comments. Hi, Miss Lucille. Yes. It's good to have you here. Blessings to you. Jim, it's good to have you here. Connie's been quiet. I haven't seen Connie yet. Hello, Miss Dorothy. It's good to have you. Andrew is asking about hoodies in public. Now, very interesting. And again, this is a move in the right direction because full face coverings, be it with a bandana, be it with a t-shirt, be it outright with these things that come over your head, and then you use a towel or something across your face and only your eyes. Could that also mean hoodies? When the public consultation comes out, maybe they may be included as well. You must have a reason to actually have it. I mean, sometimes our weather here is 100 and odd degrees. Seeing someone walk down the road in that, unless it's a sweatsuit for exercising, it's a little weird, right? But there is a fine line with that when it comes to balancing of people's rights in dressing how they want, but not when it becomes of public interest. And this is where the guidance from the legal team, the drafters, your feedback, public consultation feedback is key. Exactly. So you want to make sure that there is a balance, that it doesn't appear that you're telling people how to dress, which I digress for a second. I see something keep coming up, and I did a little episode on it where Tampa International is a Tampa airport, or one airport in the US is banning people from, like, we don't need to see your sleepwear. We don't need to see your pajamas walking through the airport. And people are saying, I should have the right to travel how I want. I mean, unless I'm not exposing myself, who cares if I want to travel in a SpongeBob SquarePants slacks or my PJs, as long as I'm not exposing, right? And there's a different side of that travel now has become so intrusive, invasive, that what's the sense of dressing with class anymore? And it's more comfortable for you to dress in slacks and Crocs. And I think even Crocs came up into it. Nothing disrespectful about Crocs. It's just not my favorite footwear. Excellent shoe choice, by the way. But it's going to be quite interesting, the national debate. But I think from the perspective and for where this motion was derived, it is a matter more of national security. Because if you're driving in your car, there is absolutely no need for you to have a full face covering with only your eyes in it. It's just not making sense. If you pull up to go get food or something, you shouldn't actually be walking in to a pharmacy or grocery store just being fully covered for whatever reason. You shouldn't be just walking on the road fully covered unless that's your religion, and there are going to be provisions. And what has happened since COVID is that persons have gotten so accustomed to it that even when robberies are are actually happening, people don't know whether or not it's a worker or whether it's legitimately you're entering the store. It has become a norm. So we're going to reverse it back with this motion now being passed, going back to what is reasonable. And we have to see what the legislation comes about. But I like the feedback thus far. More of this discussion as this continues to evolve. Will this be one of those now that actually now reports back? The Clerk of Parliament reports back now to Cabinet. Cabinet have to decide and report back to the next sitting of the House, or as soon as possible, where they're going to go with this, and then whose ministry is going to take it on and lead the charge with the legislation. Is there going to be a select committee or a group of people, focus group, that's comprised of various ministries and people from civil society to help steer this whole exercise so it's participatory? We don't know. But that's really what's next. And I'm so happy that we actually go through the flow here on Sabrina Speaks so you understand what happens next, because this is one that we will keep our eye on. Good evening, Clean and Straight. How are you? It's good to have you joining us. Jim says, Andrew Campbell, I was just about to comment, hoodies. Who the hell needs to wear them in the Caribbean weather anyway? Maybe 1 or 2 weeks out of the year. We definitely had a few days where we had it over the Christmas, but I agree with you, Jim. And Andrew is saying exactly. Andrew said, well, we cannot wear sunglasses, caps, hats when we go into banks, government departments here, security guards in force. Well, I think unanimously from a societal standpoint, with the exception maybe of some of those gardeners, well, you got the sleeves that you can wear. And if you don't know, shameless plug, Edwards at Ed's Place, he sells them. He sells those sleeves, those things that you can cover your arm. Like I think it was the member for Northside says, go get a thatch hat, go get a sombrero. And if you don't know what a sombrero is, get a thatch hat, a wide brim hat. That's what our farmers used to use back in the day. But there's no need, and I see where he's coming from. There's no need for you to have your full face covered unless it's for medical reasons or your religion working. And like I said, kudos to the member from Georgetown Central for actually filing this motion and getting it unanimously passed. It was supported by all. Yeah. Jim says we can dress comfortably without wearing pajamas and wearing slippers. Yes, I agree. There's one airport in the United States that's like, we are tired of it. We don't want to see your PJs. Yeah, it'll be interesting. We brought it up here though. We brought it up. We had an entire episode on it, and it was interesting where the feedback came. Wake up, Cayman Islands. The full-face burqa is the verge of being banned in the UK. It is getting there. France and Poland and even some Muslim countries has banned it. Oh, really? Well, like I said, we're watching this space. We're going to keep it locked, and we're definitely going to keep you informed. But thank you for sharing that with us. That may actually steer where this piece of legislation goes, because the good thing is, there is no substantive piece of law right now in the Cayman Islands that we can say, well, okay, we're amending this, we're amending that. We can create our own piece of legislation with this motion now being passed to make it for us, but being vigilant of what's happening around the world and possibly regionally. And we don't want a cut and paste exercise. We want something a piece of legislation that reflects us. And this is why this is an opportunity now for all of us to be a part, to participate when that time comes for public discussion. But I can see a lot of the uniform services being involved in this, and they may look at other jurisdictions for how it works as well. Yes, Andrew says suspicious activity. Denver, no, where are you? Oh, No pride. Good to have you here, Denver. How you doing? Shaka Zulu's in the house. How are you, my dear? Auntie Sabrina. We have that in common. We both dislikes those glorified Dutch clogs. Oh, all clogs. Ugliest footwear ever since platform shoes. You are darn right. Eric wears them around the house, but the dog uses them as chew toys, and I can tell you can't destroy them. Hence, I was not being funny when I said that. It's real. Chance does a number on them, and I have bought him so much toys. He refuses. So, hey, it is what it is, but it's not mine. Oh, no. Oh, God, no. Denver says, once upon a time, we used to see our visitors not dressed like they were like they're home in their backyards. Today, it's like no decency in public. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. It is definitely taken a different turn. Anthony Reed, hi from Colombia. How are you? So nice to have you join us. Alfred Real, good evening to you. He says, good evening, Auntie Sabrina. Will this mean that people will have to walk around with some sort of card or certificate allowing a person to wear a mask, and which they must provide to an officer who maybe stop them? It all depends. Remember, as long as it is not a covering for what the motion is, and remember, it's only a motion that was unanimously passed, the nitty gritty, the fine lines and all of that sort of stuff, the operational side of it is yet to be done. But what was clear from the onset is what we are seeing now with persons using T-shirts to fully cover their face. It is not a part of their religion. It is not for medical reasons. You're not immunocompromised. It's a no-no. Walking into certain stores, public places where you cannot identify the individual, and there's no reason outside of you being on your job for you to be driving fully clothed, unless it's for religious purposes, that you can't be identified. That's where it's coming from, Alfred Real. So I feel at the end of the day, however, if you're actually found, like once it becomes law and it's commenced, the operational arm will define your reasoning for doing it. Now, I could be immunocompromised and I walk around with that 9-to-5 mask, like what we used to use during COVID. You can pretty much make out that it's still my feature. That's not the same as me coming on here with a burqa. It's not. And that's really and truly what some who are coming to do your gardening, some who are coming to wash your cars, who are working on job sites, which you can understand they're exposed to the sunlight, the elements, that sort of stuff. That now, walking into a supermarket, a store, it's not allowed in the banks, period. Anyhow, that's what they're trying to actually get in control, Alfred Real. Andrew, those 2 robberies at the Western Union and jewelry store in Georgetown, the people were wearing those coverings as construction workers have on. Exactly. And that is why, if you notice, we actually got climatized. It was becoming a norm. And this is why when they buzzed them in, or however they got access into the store, I'm trying to remember the video, they were unfazed because it has become a norm to see people walking around. They assume they were really legit customers, but they had ulterior motives. So we want to get our people back, our society back, and by making laws now that is no longer normalized, that it will be an offense unless you have just cause to be walking around dressed in that manner. Yes. Wake Up Cayman Island says, men has committed crimes here in the UK with burqas on. It needs to be banned too before it gets out of hand. There is no need for it. There is no religious prosecution in Cayman. Yeah, persecution in Cayman. So yeah, I think we're getting there though, to be honest. Anthony Reid, Colombia government has passed laws against implementing Sharia laws. So it's going to be interesting how this, also Anthony says UK and US should follow the lead. Ah, boy, it's, Cayman must be careful. They will use religion as an excuse. That law needs to be meticulously drafted. The look is not good for tourism. It's something tourists wants to get away from. Well, that is why I'm so happy that it's going to go through the public consultation phase as well, and all of these things will be taken into consideration. And God spare his life. We're still here as we continue to evolve in this space, and it makes the bill. Then guess what? We'll bring it and we'll go through here. But at this stage, kudos to everyone. If there's one elected member of parliament that is speaking out, definitely, no matter what side the aisle he's on, is KB, I call him, elected member for Georgetown Central, Kenneth Bryan. And he filed all three of these motions, and he got them through. So yeah, let's see where it's going to go. Also, remember when we were going through the immigration transition amendment, and it was so confusing and how I was going from one law to the next? Well, private members motion number 5, 2526, mandatorily redline amendment bills, again tabled or presented on the floor of Parliament by MP Bryan. They also unanimously supported and approved that motion that will make our laws clearer, more transparent, and even easier for everyone to understand. So if you've ever had challenges with that, moving on to the next motion now, that too was also passed unanimously. And what that is that the mandatory red line amendment means that moving forward, once it's, I guess, crafted in law, or maybe there's going to be a policy change. I don't know. Maybe this may be one that could be implemented a little quicker. From now on, every change to any substantive law, any current law, must be shown openly in black, red, and white, right? So there's no more guessing anymore. There is no more multiple or triplicate documents when you're trying to see, this is what the current bill says. This is what we're proposing to change it to. And this is what it would look like when and if it is approved. What you're going to have now with this red line document is that you're going to have one single piece of document, which will be the current law. The suggested changes will be marked over it, crossed out in one color, and what it will be replaced with. If there's a new section, that will be in a different color, that will be uniform for anything would be the replacement, but you're not having 2 or 3 documents to try and make one. So it becomes easier when you're looking at a amendment bill in the future. And what this will do is that it will affect everyone, not just lawyers, because with these mandatory red lines now, people who wanting a better, clearer understanding quicker, business owners will see what the new rules would look like that could affect their operation. You got parents as well who can better understand the changes of education, for example, laws, even if they never picked up a law before, with it all being in one document, digital or hard copy, it will all be on one document now. And even homeowners who may be tracking how it could impact their household or planning or development, that sort of stuff, and employees as well. It makes it easier for everyday employees. Maybe if they may update labor laws, it's easier digestible. And also when we as media people, podcasters, we can also report accurately to deliver it in a wholesome manner for you as well. And ultimately, the public can hold government accountable because it's everything there in one document. So what this does is that you can follow it easily in one document. So you see exactly what is being presented, what is being changed, and where we're going to go. So it fixes, the MPs argue that our laws are changing so often, which that's fine. Laws are not made to be static. Amendments, they agree, can be complicated, and the public deserves clarity, easy to read because it builds transparency and trust. And it shows where democracy works best when people can understand what the government is trying to do. And also, again, with all of these reasons put forward, unanimously it was passed on the floor of Parliament. So there you have it. We're moving forward for sure. Andrew said, the reality is that we are not like how we were 40 years ago. You cannot leave your wallet, handbag too visibly seen. You are baiting yourself. Yeah, it's true. Those days are gone where you could leave your house door open and that sort of stuff based on the neighborhoods. You just can't trust anybody now. I know Cayman Brack, that used to be a place where you could just do it, but not even over there anymore. So yeah, we are changing drastically. Simply in the car, we would you would just get out, run into a store, come right back, and you're good. Things and times have changed, and that's exactly what's happening. Now, I told you that the limiting of social media for children ongoing was brought by the floor of Parliament by MP from Georgetown West, Perlina McGlaw-Lumsden. And this motion, she was speaking about concerns about youth mental health, cyberbullying, addictions as well, and the roles that parents actually play versus the state. And what this is doing is that this has actually gotten great attention, and it's obviously overdue from what has been actually discussed. And I feel, if not already, the vote has been in that she will get this unanimously as well. But just for a reference, remember somebody brought up for the amount of committees that we had for the size of our island, we see where private members motion 10, 11, no, private members motion 11, 12, and 13. 11 was motion to establish a banking and economy standing committee. Motion 12, motion to establish an education and human services standing committee. And motion number 13, motion to establish an infrastructure and housing standing committee. All three of those motions have been withdrawn until a later date. So they have the member of the opposition, Bodden Town West, Christopher Saunders, he rose to the floor of Parliament, and they voted individually to actually get the blessings and full on record that those three motions have been withdrawn. So at some point later, maybe in this administration, you may see those surfaces, you may not. And you may say, well, why go through all the process of doing that? Maybe the opposition side spoke with the sitting government side, and they spoke it through because either the government is working on something that would actually include this, or the timing. There could be a plethora of reasons, but the mere fact that you actually had the cooperation of the government with the opposition and vice versa, it speaks volumes as to how Parliament here in the Cayman Islands is now conducting. Now, like I said, they have been withdrawn until a later date. Let's see. But that's to keep you abreast of private members' motions that those last three, 11, 12, and 13 have been struck. They have been withdrawn, so they no longer exist. And let's see exactly what will happen there. But we're seeing a more unified approach in regards to this as well. Dilly Williams, Cayman was one of the best places to live. I worked there once. That's what I admire more, the security. Was one, we still are, Miss Williams. I'm telling you the truth. We still are in comparison to so much other areas in the world today. We still are. And that's why we're fighting hard to get necessary legislations in place to be more inclusive, more involved, and encourage participatory democracy while everyone does their part, members of civil society, where keeping our place clean and all that sort of stuff comes into play. And also the other private members motion that was passed is the importation of asking for equipment for those persons who want to possibly do that motion to do the free importation of recycling equipment. So this creates entrepreneurial opportunities, and anybody who may want to get into that type of business, well, hello, it's not a law yet, but the motion being passed, what's next? Legislation is supposed to be drafted, but it's something in the works. And for all of you aspiring entrepreneurs to want to get into this line of business, hey, it's in the works. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Sabrina Speaks. What's on your mind today?
Well, Sabrina, good evening, and good evening to the listeners. I always have stuff on my mind. It's like I stack them up over 6 months and I unload every single day or every week. So,
You need a vacation from
well,
yourself.
well, I need it. Yes, maybe some things physically might change with me. Well, Sabrina, it's very good that you continue to discuss this, educating the public about the
I'm
house and how it
trying.
works. And
I'm trying. Honest to
yeah,
God, I am.
it- it- well, you see, this is the thing in every society. You were inside. You now know certain things you did. You were first a civil servant, and then in the private sector, and then in
Elected.
government, and then you come up on a talk show. It just gives you such a rich background because then you understand things. You have seen things from all perspectives.
All sides. You don't really
Just like,
find a lot of us hybrids out there anymore that's willing to still put themselves public facing. That's what a lot of people have been coming back to me saying. Sabrina, you're full circle.
yeah, and we need more full circle people in the society because they'll promote education, they'll promote understanding, and just general harmony in this society. Now, the issue about the motions is it's very good. I mean, now we've got a few more committees
No.
than there
They
used
were
to be
withdrawn.
before.
The committees are withdrawn until a later date. All the
I was,
committees,
yeah, I was listening.
all of those committees have been
Okay,
withdrawn. 11, 12, and
yeah,
13.
okay.
They're all been withdrawn.
I just went back to it when who is this? I think it was Chris Saunders was
Yes.
on, and then because I think it was him and Kenneth who moved and seconded.
Yes, sir.
So okay, because I did hear that something was being withdrawn, but I didn't know which ones
It's
it
all
was. So was
three,
it?
three of those committees, all three.
Did they give a reason for that,
There
or
was
was it that they some?
I think I kind of paraphrased it. It's like they spoke off camera to the government.
Yeah.
And I guess there was an exchange whether stuff is in the works, not speaking on behalf of the government or the opposition, but what I understood, and yes, coming full circle, more than likely there's substantial things in the works that would cover all three or some of these. And I think it was just an agreement with the opposition and the sitting government to just hold off a little bit. And we should see something coming that would actually address these. So it showed maturity. It showed compromise as well. So we'll just have to wait and see exactly. But I know when the vote came in for all three of these to have them withdrawn, I was actually listening.
Okay.
I wasn't like Connie
Well,
watering the orchids. I was actually listening.
Well, I mean, it's good. You would have wished a little bit that maybe this consultation might have taken before, but I mean, people are busy and sometimes it's not always possible. But whenever you find out that something might be done a different way, maybe a little better, maybe with in a collegiate way, it's always good, regardless of the stage, to be able to do that. We'll see what they come up with. I mean, I don't know what the reason is. Maybe they want to work on the composition, because I saw from the motions, the composition of, I think, all three of them, the speaker was going to be the chair. And then the membership was going to be from five to not less than 5 up to 7 and so on. But anyway, let's wait and see how that's going to happen. But I just want to say something about generally this whole issue of change, and maybe beginning with the issue of the red line draft. That is really a significant change. But before I address that specifically, I want to give a shout out really to Honorable Kenneth Bryan and the Honorable Speaker. Because the two of them, there may be others, but those are the ones that I can talk about now. They seem to be really oriented towards being able to improve things and changing things. They are not people who say, well, this is the way it was always done. Let's leave it this way. There are a number of things that Mr. Ezra Miller did, for example, when he was chair of the Public Accounts Committee. I think he started off saying, well, let's have some kind of manual which helps us in what to do. And he's got a lot of experience, but also he is read up on a lot of stuff, and he was really moving things forward. That's why, in a sense, I was disappointed that he wasn't elected, but then there he is now in a position where he can influence even more change. And the Honorable Kenneth Bryan, I find also is the same. He goes out there and he questions why certain things are done in a certain way, and has got suggestions. And I think that's good. In Cayman, both among politicians, and if I can be specific, among the people in the Attorney General's chambers, particularly those who deal with legislation, I think we are lacking vision.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times what we do is, yes, we move forward, but too slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And let me give you examples. Way back in, I left the chambers 2015, but somewhere around 2007,
Mm-hmm.
it started being an issue about how our laws were drafted in the masculine, people were kept asking, "Oh, why don't we draft in a gender neutral fashion?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was taking this always to my chambers and putting it to the head of department, and basically they didn't want to change it. I mean, we went on for years and years. They didn't want to change it until the year when the Honorable Tara Rivers was elected. And then she started pushing for that. I remember two of her staff, both ladies, went on Radio Cayman and said, "You know what, we do not want to be revolutionary in any way, but please let's move forward and try to start drafting laws in a gender neutral way." And they were not even saying it should be strict. They just said, let's start moving in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something that could have been done. And that was, when did Tara get elected? I can't remember, but it was in the early 2000s and something. But the point I want to make
if it
is,
wasn't 13, it was 17.
okay, it's either 13 or 17. Very good. Do you know in New South Wales, in Australia, when they went gender neutral? 1983. Okay. 1983, they said all laws shall be gender neutral.
Mm-hmm.
They also said in their interpretation laws, they changed them to say, you know, the way the interpretation law says that everything in the masculine gender includes females.
Mm-hmm.
They amended their interpretation laws to say everything in the masculine gender includes females, and everything in the female gender includes males and all other genders, or something like that.
What a big
Okay. So, yeah, So at the end of the day, yes, in Cayman, we do move, but very, very slowly. Why? Because people are not really imaginative.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at, for example, another area where, let me give a shout out here to Denny Warren Jr. You know, when the Constitution was enacted, 2009, and then there were amendments in 2016, and then some further amendments in 2020. For a long time, there was no consolidated, like a new edition,
Mm-hmm.
a new copy of the Constitution to put those two in so that people can read one document.
Mm-hmm.
It was Denny Warren Jr., if I remember correctly, who, when Vaughn Carter, who was or maybe still is with the Constitutional Commission, Denny Warren called and said, why don't you have a consolidated copy of the Constitution so that people can follow?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a few months after, it was done. And now that is publicly available.
In one document, yes.
In one document. Now, of course, they say that it's unofficial in the sense that it is not published by the Law Revision Commissioner in the UK, that kind of thing, because it can't become official unless it is released by the right entity. But at least they've given us something that we can use.
And it's easy digestible. Read.
Yeah. Why didn't they do that, for example, immediately in 2016 when the first major amendment was done, and maybe do another one in 2020? We wound up having one done, I think it was last year, 2025. Again, do you see? It's moving. It is moving too slowly. Another thing which they moved very slowly about, that the laws being on the website is only a recent thing, because while other countries had started putting their laws freely and updated on their websites, Cayman was not doing that. While other countries were taking, like, the cases decided in court, putting them on the website, Cayman was not doing that. Now, you won't find on the website, unless you are on a paid subscription, the ones that are edited and are in a law report. But the raw drafts are supposed to be available. And I remember we pushed for this, me and Woody Da Costa and a number of other people.
Mm-hmm.
We pushed that the laws and the cases should be on the websites. And we fought for a long time, and eventually they had it done. So all I'm saying, really, I mean, I could give other examples. All I'm saying is, yes, it's good to move forward, but let us be more creative. Let us not even sometimes say, well, unless they do something in the UK, we can't do it, you know. We must always say, okay, what are the people asking for?
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest demands that are being made at the moment, for example, is that the memorandum of objects and reasons which accompanies bills
Mm-hmm.
does not help. If you say that Section 7 is being amended by deleting paragraph 13
Where's
to put
the
another
context?
paragraph,
Justify.
what
What
is
is the
the
justification?
what is the justification? You tell us a story. What was there before, and what are you bringing together, bringing in force, and how is it different? That's what you're supposed to do in a memorandum. Up to now, we are still fighting that battle. I know that anyone Jr. as well has been talking about this. They just haven't really caught up to it. And I think when you look at the immigration law in particular,
Mm-hmm.
it was particularly important with that one because there are some laws which are easy to understand, like particularly if it's an original law, it's not an amendment,
Mm-hmm.
and if it is short, sometimes you don't need to explain it too much. You still need to explain it, but not too much. But something like the immigration law, they really needed to do a good job. But up to now, it looks like they haven't really caught up to that. Another thing that's missing, you know, in Cayman, up to the time I left government, there is no legislation handbook. In other countries, what they have got a legislation handbook, which basically talks about the way the legislative process works, how you propose laws and how you consult on them and to whom they go and the whole process until finally they are enacted. The one in New Zealand is something like about 300 pages long, but that's an exception. A lot of them tend to be somewhere around maybe 100 to 200 pages. In Cayman, I started advocating that when I was in government and I was fought. They said, well, if the ministers asked us to do something, if we start telling them about the handbook, you know, we just need to do the work, you know, which is a stupid response, to be frank with you. You need to be able, once you have a legislation handbook, it helps everybody understand what their role is, and therefore government will be more efficient. All they have, for example, in legislative drafting, at this last time when I checked it, is a document of about 15 pages long, which just tells you, okay, this is the way you give instructions. This is how the legislative drafting department is structured. No. You need more than that. And then the cabinet handbook also, which I was advocating when I was in government, you know, when that came on board, when Wayne Panton was premier, that came on board. And that took also a very long time. That is something which should have been done, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or something.
I think there's a lot of silver linings in COVID. I worked for a period of time, of course, as a civil servant, and then ran my own business for 15 years before getting elected, right? And it was always talked about, especially dealing with immigration and online payments, submission of applications. It was always talked about this digital way of going and doing business. And it wasn't until COVID that we saw that embraced. Even though it was rushed, it took a pandemic for that to actually become a reality. So not to tell you, like how you saying laws being online, subscription or not, but before you literally had to go to the Legislative Assembly, then pay a fee to walk it with a book. Because unless you paid for an online subscription, that was still evolving. You understand? So I'm really thinking with the power of social media now, the power of just getting information, the amount of resources, you're not just limited to Encyclopedia Britannica anymore. You got Uncle Google, you got chat bots, you got Chat GTP. Let me tell you something.
AI things,
Exactly. You can do that in less than 2 to 3 minutes. So I feel you're onto something when it comes to pace. What society is being done now, because it's so easy, if you so choose to educate yourself on something that you want to know more on, You just use the right tools and go to educate yourself to hold persons accountable. And I think that operationally is what governments, and especially small island development states, are actually grappling with now, because what you used to get away with back in the day, thanks to all of social media, thanks to different tools that can get you information right now, they're going to have to implement processes that is moving with the pace in which people expects you to actually produce. And that's what they're competing with right now.
Yeah, you know, COVID. You've touched on a very interesting issue there. COVID. In Ontario, there are some courts you would go to. You want to file a document, you could wait 3 hours. You can't file a document, and then if 4 o'clock comes and they close, even if you've taken a number, they will just tell you that it is closed. Then you have to come back the next day and take a number, because your number doesn't hold over until the next day.
Oh, wow.
That's the way it was before COVID. And then when COVID came, of course, everybody was forced now to start working
remotely,
full time, to put it online and so on and so forth. Now, they won't accept filings unless they're online. they just won't accept filings unless they're online.
I could be honest with you. I was trying to sort out some telecoms paperwork yesterday with a friend. And my question was, can you do this online? Just hold on. No, I don't need to print that off. I got a scan here. I'll give you this. I'll give you that. And the look on their face when they looked at me like, wow, this Sabrina, where did she come from? What I'm saying is, times have gotten you there that once you were like, we're not going to take it, you have to come in with the hard copies. Now people are like, you don't have to, just scan and upload. We're seeing people being a little bit more embracing of technology right now that makes processes more efficient. And I can tell you, you wouldn't be Mr. Balika. You should know. When Sandra threw me under the bus with being in this space and I realized I have to do this, I have to do that, yada, 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 I was scared. And now I'm like, boom, boom, boom. I still got a lot of way to go because it continues to evolve. But when you put it into where society is going, processes, submitting of applications, just doing business, let me tell you something. Governments, human resources, how business operates, sustainability, longevity is going a lot to do with how quickly you respond. And that will determine the level of your service and even the remaining of your existence. You can't be scared of technology anymore, in my humble opinion.
No, you can't be. That old adage still holds true today. Who is the mother of invention? Who is the mother of invention? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Necessity.
So you really find that's very important. I wanted to mention something as well relating to the immigration regulations, because one of the big discussions that we've had, of course, is that a lot of things that they want to put in regulations, they should really go in the act, because those are matters relating to principle. Regulations are supposed to govern only matters of detail. But you see, what should have been considered, in my view, as a midway point. They could have said that those regulations will be drawn up by government, but they will be subject to an affirmative resolution of the Legislative Assembly, so that they will draw the regulations, they will take them to the Legislative Assembly, not to be enacted like an act of Parliament, but just to check them from the policy angle and see and be able to approve them. That's like a midway procedure, which does not amount to an act of Parliament. At the same time, it is not just a regulation which is passed by cabinet without anybody approving it. And I would urge the government really that even if they didn't put that in the immigration amendment bill, they could have said regulations made under this law shall be subject to the affirmative resolution of the Legislative Assembly. They didn't do that. But to me, I think they should still consider that before those regulations come into force, they should take them to public consultation, but in addition, take them to the House so that they can be debated in committee or in a committee of the whole House. That way, I think it will help people appreciate a little better that they understand what's in there. They will also believe that the government is not trying to pull a fast one. I think that would be quite useful. But Sabrina, this is a long-standing thing. You know, when I was in Cayman, when I wrote my book on the legislative process, the one that, not the one specifically on Cayman, but a more generalized one, which Mr. Arden McLean has recommended to these new MPs who came in. When I was writing that, you know, I thought I was an expert in writing legislation. And maybe I was, because I mean, that's what I've done more than anything else. I've done court work. I worked in 2 international organizations. I've done stuff. I've taught. I still teach and so on. But when I started writing that book, what I learned, it was almost as if I was new to the subject, because I got to learn how different countries do different things. And some things which I myself had thought, what if we do it this way? Won't it be better? I found there was other countries who were already doing it. For example, let me give you one example of something which you'll be familiar with in government when you were a cabinet minister. Like when they come to cabinet, they say, okay, fine, this is a cabinet paper. Can you pass it and so on? But there are sometimes it is urgent. What do you do? Okay. I found that in like Australia, for example, they have a special procedure, and it is in the legislation handbook to say that if it is very urgent, you can take it just to the Prime Minister's office, and you can get approval for it, even for a bill to be drafted. There is an urgent thing, and then the Prime Minister will take responsibility to take it to cabinet. Because what people used to say was that, look, if you can't write legislation until first you go to cabinet, you seek approval in principle, and then you come back, you start drafting. Sometimes cabinet is not meeting. What do you do? But they've worked out a special procedure where if you make a special case, the Prime Minister can authorize to be done. Now, maybe that is done in Cayman as well, but you need to specifically...
You're talking about legislation, but I know legislation is totally different. That is a big wig.
Yeah.
But I know what they do to try and fast track, maybe to enact the call then for legislative drafting, is a thing called round robin of papers. So even if caucus and cabinet are not meeting, and you want something to make sure you're going to get the 28-day next sitting of the parliament, you have a thing called a round robin. Yeah. And usually we would have spoken to each other, because you have these chats now amongst yourselves as a caucus, a cabinet. And then that worked. But what was happening is that rush papers, urgent papers for cabinet, it's like when you're thinking you got a cabinet of order paper, let's say 6 items, sometimes that could end up 10, 12 because they're rushed. It's clearly having to define what is the true definition of an urgent paper. But legislation is totally different. But what they use, I don't know if they still use it, is round robins. So that even if, because I've had my PA come out to my constituency office, or I've taken myself away from constituency office and go in to avoid government documents, having to leave government premises. I have taken myself many a times back there, even on constituency days, to execute documents. Or again, on email, you actually give your support, and then you don't have to leave, and it's not compromising someone actually walking with a physical paper to get your signature.
Exactly. You know, round robin used to, I mean, I know it would have bailed out the cabinet a lot of time, but even us in legislative drafting, it's like if sometimes we want to effect a change in a piece of legislation, but we don't feel safe to change it without cabinet approving
approval.
it. Exactly. We shouldn't. And then we'll take it back to the minister and say, Minister, this is for you, and then the minister puts together the system with the cabinet office and all that, and then they send it out there. Last thing, let me end on one thing. Now that you're talking about round robin, I don't know how they did it when you were minister. When I was there, they always sent your cabinet extracts. You know what a cabinet extract is for some people who are listening who might not be. Cabinet extract is just an extract of the minutes from the decision of cabinet. And they take that cabinet extract and then they send it physically to legislative drafting, because it is supposed to be confidential at a certain point. And in Australia and New Zealand, they stopped doing that physically. They have a government system. I don't know if one exists in Cayman. It didn't exist when I was there.
They're trying to get it where it's automated, because before I left political office.
Yeah.
Even caucus meetings and stuff, you had an option of telling the caucus cabinet secretary whether or not you want your stuff digital or make copies. You understand? To try and save on paper. So whether they've gone completely into a paperless environment or it's still one's choice, I could be honest with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes based on the complexity of a paper, I liked to have my hard copy because it's, to me, until I get used to it, it was a little easier for me. And then I saw where I was actually getting more into digital. And then, you know, but yeah, it was a matter of choice. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
That still happens. And they still walk it around.
They walk it around. Okay. You know what they've done because of the confidentiality of cabinet deliberations and decisions, what they have, for example, in New Zealand, they have like an encrypted, secure, secret communication system where only certain people have access.
Yeah.
Yeah, access to it, and so it's not the regular email or government email, which is reasonably secure. But like if you are going to transmit things that are secret, highly confidential, and so on, they've got this special system they developed, which is really like very difficult to hack, and that's what they use, you know, to be able to communicate if something is particularly confidential.
To be honest with you,
but
there are certain things that leak. I mean, it is alleged that persons have got envelopes under windscreen or dashboards, whatever, that is, you know, some private stuff, decisions that really shouldn't be there. There is a certain decorum to me that once you're in certain political elected, certain offices, certain positions, period, that you shouldn't really breach if you have anything. I go very colloquial now, any scruples about yourself. There's just certain things you don't do because they could have long. It says and it shows the weakness in a system, but it also speaks a lot on the deliverer as well. Especially if it's, I think we need to think heavily on doing certain things because it shows up a weakened system, number one, and then it speaks a lot about you. And even though it may work now, at the end of the day, you're eroding your validity, your trustworthiness, even when you're helping somebody in that moment, probably trying to define something. Eventually, they're going to say, well, if she's capable of doing that now, you're going to trust her. You understand? It's hard, but to me, there's a level of decorum and professionalism in certain roles that you play. It will sicken people. It will aggravate people that you're by the book. But trust me, when it comes to your reputation, that is priceless.
It is priceless. And I'll tell you one little quibble I had a little bit with the Cayman system was I don't think confidentiality was very much respected.
No, because you're saying things, you'd be saying things, well, you know, I got Mr. Balika. I was so happy Mr. Balika helped me wrote this paper, not expecting it to be used against you. You were just happy that you were praising Mr. Balika for helping you. And that time you're shooting Balika indirectly because that may get to your boss ears and they'll be like, hold on, why are you doing that? This came to my attention that you were helping so-and-so write a paper. You are a civil servant. Yeah. Why are you doing that? With no intentions of causing any harm. Yeah. It probably cost you your job.
You know, in the government that I joined many years ago, because a lot of the system was still the old British system, which they left in the colonies. I mean, when you wrote your letter, you had to decide, is this secret, which is the highest form of thing? Is it just confidential, you know, or is it an open letter? And there were specific stamps you put on it, and it was very. It was very. Oh yeah, that's the way they did it in the old school. And people sometimes we used to get disciplined, like for divulging things like that. For example, a cabinet paper, for example. The rule used to be, in the old time before computers, the rule used to be that you couldn't photocopy a cabinet paper. Mm-hmm. Why?
I heard.
Because as soon as you photocopy it, then once it leaks, we can't trace it.
Exactly.
But if we say there are 15 members of cabinet, you all get your copy, and your copy is numbered. The secretary to the cabinet knows that Minister Sabrina Turner got number 4. So if number 4 leaks, we know she done it. You know, that kind of thing. So little things like that maybe might be improved. They have never been such a serious problem because, see, governments don't come down in Cayman because something is leaked. But in other governments, one thing can leak and the whole government can come down. But it's something which over a period of time can be looked at because it can be very expensive. See, you remember the time when Minister, it was the current premier when he was minister, he made a suggestion, or they made a recommendation about increase of fees. I think it was relating to the credit union. And then he announced it to say we are suggesting that there should be an increase. People didn't like the idea of an increase. And then suddenly people say, well, but why did it leak out? And then Mr. Bush was also saying, hey, look, before it goes public, cabinet must first approve it, at least approve the basis upon which you will consult. See, those little tiny things.
So
and
even
so
a
on.
suggestion, a fragment of an idea, we're talking and, we're saying, well, that may be, and we're speaking out aloud, even if it may come to be, I can see where, This is why you have to be so careful as well when you're in a particular office and seat and politically alone. You have to be careful even how you engage with people in the supermarket, because people will only hear the last end of a statement. And then that creates this void to be filled with everything else and just add on what they thought in context you meant. And it could be as far as east is from west.
Yeah. Now I keep saying this is the last one, but this one, the next one is very short. Is the last one. When we were some time back, I think 2005, 2006, Mr. Bowden, the AG, said, "Hey, look, we need people who can come in, just work maybe 6-7 months to help us write legislation." And the people in the department, they're saying, "Oh, we don't know anybody." I told him, I said, "I know a lot of people in the Commonwealth." So I called up this guy who had worked with me on a World Bank project in Africa for 2 years, but I got to know him very well. He had gone back then to his office in New South Wales, where he had worked as a senior drafter for 22 years. So I called him up. I said, "Peter, well, do you want to come to the Cayman Islands for 6 months?" He said, "Oh, yeah." So, I mean, I had to persuade him a little bit, and then he came. And when he came, one time we were just having a drink, and then he read in the paper that the Freedom of Information law is being worked on. And then he said to me, "You guys, do you know that if it came out in the Sydney Morning Herald that actually this legislation is being worked on, some heads are going to roll because in Australia we don't deal with legislation this publicly. It is dealt with privately for a long time, and then it goes to cabinet. Cabinet decides then, okay, when to release it." And I mean, that hit me yet again, that the Cayman system can be a little bit liberal. But I just thought I should give you that example to show how somebody in that other society, which is a liberal society, how they are more strict about, when they're dealing with legislation.
Yeah.
Well,
I
Sabrina,
think
thanks.
I know that was your last, but I'll add on to this because it's relative. I think it has a lot to do with the fact of how small of a society we are. Even in the region, you look at how protocol, how elected members of parliament are handled in Jamaica, Barbados, in Trinidad, in other jurisdictions. And you have us, where, it's okay. We go out to do our own shopping. We mingle, we go to the pubs, we go to, I mean, it's like, we are elected to members of parliament, but we're so accessible. That is what people are saying is so common. So what you are actually alluding to right now, the practices, maybe it's just who we are. Some people are saying that's what makes us unique. That's what makes us special. But then the risk of exactly what you've described is even greater, because unless you are a diplomat and you know how to conform and contort yourself to avoid certain conversations, sometimes it's hard to get out of it because body language speaks. And so sometimes your safest place is remaining at home, so you don't get caught in certain conversations. It's not that you're avoiding people, but you're protecting yourself. And the road.
I see that. No, Sabrina, I see that as having two sides. That is the beauty of it. You go to the supermarket and then you run into the premier. He's also getting out of his car and so on. Hello, how are you?
Yeah.
Unlike in certain places where if the minister is there, you will know because the way when he was coming there was a siren going.
Correct.
You have governments where the country I originally come from. Deputy ministers have got official cars and drivers, and they're sitting behind, and there is a flag in front. Deputy ministers, okay?
Yeah, so that would be our councillors, or not parliamentary secretaries.
Yeah, the councillors, yes.
The parliamentary
what are called now parliamentary secretaries, And yet, even in Cayman, I think it's only now that some ministers have got a driver.
And that is that has not been received very well either. But the sad thing is understanding the risks as we see what's happening geopolitically, right? Yeah. They're saying that the risk factor here is still at a level where they don't feel elected members of parliament requires all of that, especially to be funded or paid by the government. Okay, fine. We understand that. That's one perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the amount of events that MPs has to actually attend, how much calls you're returning. Many a times you have to catch up with your calls, catch up with your emails, driving, going to certain locations, having to find park if it's not identified. It can be justified, not making excuses. But bottom line is, as we continue to mature and modernize, to me, we should be proud if you have campaigned and your elected members of parliament have been elected. You shouldn't be going ham if you treat the position with a little respect when it comes to having a driver and understanding what that role is. You understand? I don't know if I'm getting it. To me, it comes with a certain level of respect because of the role, especially in a ministerial capacity. Yeah. Looking at even some of the ministries that you're responsible for, the risks are higher. Home affairs. Yeah. You understand? Hello? Do you understand the risk that comes with home affairs?
With home
The
affairs,
departments that fall under usually home affairs?
You remember the story we have? I won't use any name. The story we had around Ivan when they said they wanted to kidnap a certain member of government. They wanted to kidnap a certain member of government, but they just went to the wrong house.
Exactly. Yes.
And then you remember that? Yeah. And then they said at that point they said no, that person now has to have somebody who can drive him and so forth. Now I know that Sabrina, even chief officers can also claim that in these other countries chief officers don't have drivers, but they've got government cars which they can take home and.
But sir, look at our very deputy governor. Look at the role of the deputy governor.
Yeah.
Okay, I only need to say that the title. Remove the individual.
Yeah, the title tells
the deputy governor speaks.
Yeah,
they are the de facto person in the event anything happens to our governor.
Yeah, and you see the deputy governor. You see, because he is the deputy to the governor, but at the same time, he's the nexus to the chief officers and so on. So he's also head of the civil service.
Exactly.
So that he's got this role. I mean, for him, in fact, I think that he should have in that office a little more support than you have. Let me give you an interesting story about how.
And this your last one.
Thinking of. This is my last one now. Some people say that, well, you see, we want our ministers to be respected and to be given this comfort because we as a people want it. The late president of Tanzania, who was a famous guy, President Julius Nyerere, a lot of people know him. He was a modest person, very well educated, and he retired from office after about 25 years. And then he went to live in this modest house which he owned.
Yeah.
But then the problem was that he was now like a senior statesman helping resolve disputes around the continent and even outside the continent. But when people came to Tanzania, they had to go into this modest house, which had not even a conference room. They said, former president, you can't live like this.
Mm-hmm.
We will build you a big house which has a conference room and with cars so that when people come there, they can see that this former leader is respected and he is operating in a very respectful environment. I think Caymanians need to buy into that idea. They should insist that we want our leaders to be respected and to have a certain comfort they have, for the things they do for us. That's a little theory I'm trying to sell to Cayman.
I get where you're coming from. It's profound. It maybe have to be repeated because whether or not we're realizing that it is becoming a reality, and there's certain key positions that we may actually have to look where national security is playing a big role, that it may come a real conversation. Just before you go, not a question. This is a question that has been posted. Can you ask the caller if it would be beneficial for me to take his course to improve my knowledge, although I am not in the field, I am not in that field of work. My field is accounting. That's from Tartarian.
Yes, you can take my course, but at the moment I'm waiting for a partner I can work with in Cayman.
Oh, okay.
A partner with a little company who will be able to host it and be able to do the administrative thing of putting it on air. It's very easy to do now. We can do it without sitting in a room. But I'm looking for a partner. Any of your people who are listening, you've got a little company. It doesn't matter whether it deals with training or whatever. So long as it's got a little company, we can hook up and then we can offer the courses and there'll be percentage split of the profits, which is what I've done before. Okay.
There we go. See, we have another comment. I strongly feel Minister Miles should have some sort of extra security for what he's doing in Cayman. And Darlene Manzanares says, our deputy should have a driver or chauffeur. I mean, I think she means deputy governor should have a driver, chauffeur also. Yeah.
Yes.
There we go.
By the way, former presidents in a lot of places in Africa now have a pension. I actually drafted one law like that for my home country. When you are a former president, and that story, by the way, from Tanzania influenced that. Somewhere around 1993, there's an act called the Benefits of Former Presidents Act. Once you are a former president, we do it more like the way they do it in America now. Like you continue getting like 3/4 of the salary of the current president. And then you've got a certain number of tickets, you and your spouse, to travel outside the country. You've got a house which is built for you and it is your own house. You can even leave it to your children and so forth. So because the insistence was that a former president must live respectably, we don't want a former president standing at the bus waiting for a bus, and that is something maybe you might consider.
Wow.
Maybe Mr. Bush today would have been given a house by government, but that's a discussion for another day.
Oh, that's a big topic because Christ, you can't. Oh, let me hush. That's a whole different topic. Not to be rude to Mr. Bush. I'm just speaking about the topic on a whole. If they went on so bad about cars, OMG. So we'll leave it right there. But that's the topic for another day.
For another day, but I would be very happy to see it for him, for the respect for the man, what he has done. Forget about anything else. You can't erase what he has done.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you take care. You take care.
See, Wake Up Cayman says, I would love to take the course too. So you got people saying they're willing to take the course. Let's see how that evolves.
Get in touch with me. Maybe we can find a little company which can host them.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Thanks
have a good
very
evening,
much.
sir.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
You too.
Bye-bye. I see. I try to do breaking news here for you, and I see where it just popped up in the stories on CMRTV.com, where Jamaica ends 50-year medical program with Cuba. So we're seeing where, and I digress from the topic, but when I see these come up now, I try to share them with you. The link is there on CMR, so you can read this article for yourself and exactly what's happening with the people in Cuba. We're seeing where they're grappling. Oh, my gosh, and now more income. Jamaica now, geopolitical pressures. You see how we're all connected and you see the power. You see the power of certain leaders. So yeah, Jamaica ends 50-year medical program with Cuba. They didn't even say because of what Cuba's going through. And you can read this, the story for yourself to get more context. Whether this is permanent, whether this is forever, the word ends. let's read into this a little bit more. I know I wanted to go into the conversation as well and get your feedback here from my Sabrina Speaks family. What's your take on another topical debate that was going on as it pertains to the HIV and immigration debate, sexual transmitted disease, but more so around HIV. And this was very emotive conversation in regards to whether or not, it should be a case where a work permit holder or someone who's here on a work permit, should they come up HIV positive because there are allegations of someone here on a work permit and what has happened in the community. We can follow this because tomorrow is open mic. We can continue to expand on this conversation, but I'd like to get a feedback from our Sabrina Speaks family. What's your take on this? Whether or not you feel that if someone comes up positive, that here, let's say the renewal of their work permit, or more than likely a work permit or a government contract, let's just say that could be used against them for a non-renewal or revocation. What would be your take on it? Because we understand that knowing, in some countries and probably here for public health surveillance, anyone who comes up with a sexual transmitted disease, these are some of the things that under the immigration law that currently stands right now, whether or not you have a communicable disease is something that the board takes into consideration at the time a PR application is being considered, and other applications as well, which we can go in more detail into those tomorrow, because time will not permit for me to dissect it so that you can see exactly what the law says. And even terms for revocation as well of certain grants or for refusals. It talks even about prostitution, or if someone comes in here for actually those means. How you define that is another thing. And there are allegations that there are extracurricular activities happening in certain business establishments that poses a public health risk. And pretty much human beings can be used as weapons, especially if they know they have a sexually transmitted disease and they're outright going and spreading it all over the place. Now, this could be both genders, male and female, doing this knowingly. And then the responsibilities of public health and private doctors knowing of these situations or someone coming up positive. Now, I do not want the public, for the purpose of discussion, to get non-communicable diseases mixed up with an STD. It's totally different, okay? Because TB is one thing, tuberculosis is one thing, but also dengue and all of these are all communicable diseases as well that can be transmitted on. And there's not one particular piece of law that actually talks about these types of diseases. It's covered under the public health law, mentioned in immigration law. There are a number of pieces of legislation, but the key takeaway here is that public health surveillance, there's a responsibility of the individual. There's a responsibility deemed on employers. There's a responsibility that's deemed on clinicians as well, if you know something is going on. So I see where Andrew mentioned human trafficking and sex trafficking. Yeah, that is, but you got to catch them. You got to catch them. So we can go into this conversation. Like I said, tomorrow is Open Mic Friday. This came up very loud. Now, whether or not it's true, because it is alleged that in one particular district that there was someone rampant and X amount of persons became infected with an HIV, and that how the system it appeared to be fragmented, appeared to be cracked, and they just sent the individual back to their country of origin. We don't know for sure exactly if that remains true, but how do you deal with this nationally that deals with people with dignity? And this is where the cry that came for immigration reform, that robust HIV, VDRL testing should be done from the onset, even for visitors work visa for someone coming in for 24 hours, 7 to 2 hours, 1 day, 2 days, whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyone entering our shores and staying for X amount of time, hours, do you know how much damage they could do? That's not to say that everybody's going to come here is going to engage, but let's say there is a hidden agenda. When we talk what Andrew actually referred here about sex trafficking, and you may come, let's say, in a certain position, now you don't necessarily have to work at one of the pubs or one of the local bars. You could come in to be somebody's domestic helper. You could come in to be a nail tech. You could come in to be a masseuse. You could come in to be a lawyer or an accountant or a receptionist, a human resources person. What I'm saying is, it is no longer just a case where you're coming in certain occupations, because one particular occupations, despite there being some evidence to justify it, is a greater chance to exploit for human trafficking and sex trafficking. There's a particular industry that is known for that, and it has been stigmatized. And when you look at the frequent turnover of staffs holding certain positions in the hospitality, food and beverage industry, that sort of stuff, yeah, you kind of wonder. But it doesn't just stop within that particular occupation or those types of businesses. It could be all tiers that is disguised otherwise. And the risk then increases in a society as small as ours. And it begs then to question, when I heard the conversation come up, where is personal responsibility into all of this? Because if you're knowing that there is a high number of sexually transmitted diseases are out, I guess I would have to do some research to see if I can get the true numbers. I had some numbers because I did it earlier. I did an earlier episode on this, and we had STD numbers of even anal cancers, and it was from a certain demographics of persons. And what we're saying, it's not to stigmatize them, because they're still humans if they're unfortunate getting it. It doesn't mean that you are out there selling yourself. It could be from a blood transfusion. It could be you could have been played by a partner who didn't declare their status. It could be somebody who didn't even know, but they had a little 3-minute, 5-minute, I don't know how long on it can go. But what I'm saying, it could have been a one dip thing and you just come back out really dirty. And then you go back and you expose your partner, your wife, and you just ruin someone's life. Whatever it is, the fact is, if you're going someplace and you're going to do that, just be responsible, cover it up, be respectful. And worse, if you are just out there being very loose with yourself. And this goes to all genders. I'm not going to cry down anybody for whatever choices they want. If you lose, you lose. If that's what floats your boat, that's totally up to you. But be responsible, because it is real out there for the level of STDs that are going around. And there is a growing number of it within the Caribbean region, some jurisdictions much higher than others, and also in our early teens and younger adults, because they're exploring. It is a hype thing, what they're being exposed to, the different enhancers, and they're taking these at early ages, but it doesn't take away the risk of being exposed to a sexually transmitted disease. It doesn't have to be HIV. It doesn't have to be AIDS. It could be gonorrhea, syphilis, and in some persons, it can make men sterile. In some females, it could make you, it'd be so bad if it goes undetected, you may actually have to have surgery and never be able to have children. So it is far reaching. And I feel we need to have the real upfront conversations about how loose some of us are. It is a fact. And how long can you go? How long? Oh my God, that didn't come out too right. Meaning, how far or how much partners, oh my God, I'm embarrassed, that slipped out. How much partners you so choose to have without being or exercising some form of responsibility. Gosh, I hope you guys don't judge me for that. But yeah, I did not mean it how it came out. Andrew is saying it's very difficult to unpack as people come here under false disguise. It's really hard. But based on what's out there, Andrew, it's real. And we are just kidding ourselves to say that it's not happening. It's coming in there. It's alleged that people are coming in privately. It all depends on what sector of the island that you live on. Hey, if it floats their boats, fine. But you got to realize that you're taking a risk. Look, you got to realize that you're taking a huge risk. Jim says, think of all the people who make quick trips to Miami, yes, and or Fort Lauderdale, Jamaica, elsewhere often. No one knows what people are up to and return back to the islands. What, if anything, did they bring back with them? People are going to do what people are going to do. The government can't test everyone every time they travel and return. Must be responsible. Yeah, that's why I went there. That's why I went there, Jimbo. And you know how it is, carnival time. Ooh, man. And it seems like it's always carnival time now, everywhere when it comes to extracurricular activities. It is so easy now to just fall for someone and just go there. It's like, oh, common. I was going to make that same point. Which one? Andrew, I hope you didn't catch on to that little slip, and I hope people didn't take me out of context. But yeah, responsibility is the key, to be honest. And I think we all have a role to play. If you not only respect yourself, respect your family. And there's one thing about covering it up that, to me, just think. And remember, there was a case where someone was on a viral medication. They knew that they were positive for HIV. And even when the test was done, it showed up negative. But again, the partner became exposed and wasn't aware that their lifelong spouse was positive because they were on the antiviral medication that made their results showed up as negative when actually they were positive. So it takes a lot of conversation. It takes responsibility. And I think we all have a part to play. Government has a right to do what we have. We have it within laws to make sure we put the certain things, access to healthcare, access to surveillance, access to testing and medication. But it naga spread unless you do it. And the greatest amount of spreading it from one person to the next is sexual contact. Yes, there are cases where you get it through blood, or let's say a transplant, but there's so much testing, rigorous testing now that goes on, that those percentage of that happening and becoming a reality is smaller. It's the highest risk still right now is multiple partners. Fraudulent slip. Oh my God. You, Chartarian, you got a little bit of who I was there coming out. A good conversation. I'm late. Thank you, Tartarian. You're figuring out, it's after 6. That's all I got to say. Andrew says, alcohol takes over. Carnival, dipstick has no discrimination. You go there. I don't want it to mess up my little friend show on Friday nights, but I like you guys. I really do. Jim say with the medications they have coming out, with people don't take HIV seriously anymore. Some people think take a pill and keep on living life. It's sad, the lack of education and even ignorance. And yes, and there is a lot of responsibility in the roles that public health play as well. It's properly funded. So maybe we can do a bit more on it as well. Yes. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking and staying with me today. Thank you all for your contributions as usual. It is always a pleasure to be here with you to bring you another episode of Sabrina Speaks. I hope that in every episode thus far that you've tuned in, there has been some serious takeaways. Without you, this is not possible. Without your contribution, without your feedback, it's an empty vessel. I want to thank you so much for being a part of this space as we continue to educate, inform, and evolve, elevating talk here in the Cayman Islands and by extension, the world. Until tomorrow, please be safe. Have a good evening. And we'll be back tomorrow with a final episode for this week of Friday Open Mic, where the mic becomes yours. The topic is also yours. And the phone lines will always be open. And we'll ask everybody to respect each other so that I'm hoping I'll be flooded with calls tomorrow for participation in our open mic segment. Please be safe on the roads. Take care of yourself. Be careful. Good night. And God bless. Love you lots. Take care. That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.